Welcome back to the XRP Insider Network, the channel where we break down the biggest, boldest, and most urgent shifts in the XRP world. If you're here on Christmas Eve, buckle up because what we're about to unpack hits harder than holiday traffic and could reshape how you think about Ripple and XRP going into 2026. Before we dive in, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss an explosive update like this again. This one's a Christmas XRP warning that every holder, trader, and believer needs to hear. Here's the thing, something just shifted in Ripple XRP news that's rippling through markets, regulators, and blockchain circles alike. It's not just another headline, it's a structural shift with implications so deep that if you're not paying attention right now, you could wake up in a few weeks wondering what hit you. Let me break this down from the top because there are multiple layers to this story, and most importantly, there are potential scenarios that could dramatically impact XRP price and legal positioning in 2026. First, context. 2025 has been a year of legal pendulum swings, institutional teases, and ecosystem expansion for XRP. And now, at the tail end of the year, a convergence of legal, regulatory, and market forces suggests something bigger is happening beneath the surface. We're talking about not just price movement, but fundamental narrative shifts. And this isn't fear mongering. This is about preparing your mind for what could be coming so you're not caught off guard. The data points we'll go through are real, they're verifiable, and they're intersecting in a way that signals a new phase for Ripple and XRP, one that could be game changing or destabilizing depending on how events unfold. So here's the urgent part. This Christmas shift isn't just another XRP to the moon tweet, it's a warning signal, something that insiders, institutions, and longtime holders are already starting to reposition around. And that's exactly why we're breaking it down in depth. Let's start with the first major piece of the puzzle, regulatory movement in the US. In late December, there have been subtle but meaningful shifts coming out of Washington and the SEC. We're seeing renewed discussions about digital asset classifications, and XRP keeps popping up in conversations around settlement tokens and cross border utility assets. These aren't casual mentions, these are nuanced regulatory debates that affect XRP directly, and they come right on the heels of Ripple's hard fought progress in court. Basically, Washington could be inching toward redefining how assets like XRP are treated under US securities law, potentially creating a distinct category that separates settlement tokens from traditional securities. This might sound arcane, but it's huge. It's the kind of thing that could clear up legal ambiguity that has weighed on XRP price for years. But here's the twist. If regulators take too long, or if they opt for a restrictive category, the market could very well react in the opposite direction, with volatility that catches many traders off guard. Now, when we say something shifted, we're not just talking about talk. We're talking about language in new regulatory proposals that references cross-border payments, pre-funded tokenized assets, and positive framing around programmable settlement tokens, all buzzwords that align extraordinarily well with Ripple's use case. But here's the warning. If XRP is officially codified as a non-security settlement token, you might expect a massive relief rally. And that's exactly what some whales and institutional traders are positioning for. However, if the regulatory process stalls or gets blocked by political pushback, the opposite could happen. And markets hate uncertainty more than anything. They trade on clarity, and right now clarity is emerging, but not fully formed. Secondly, we've got movement in the international arena. Late December has brought fresh reports that the G20 and global financial regulators are honing in on digital asset frameworks that specifically reference cross-border liquidity solutions. These frameworks talk about interoperable settlement tokens and regulated payment tokens, phrasing that mirrors Ripple's core value proposition. Some nations are treating XRP as a case study for digital asset integration into traditional finance. That's not small talk. That's strategic positioning. If global regulators begin endorsing the idea that digital assets like XRP have a legitimate role in cross border settlement, that could dramatically shift institutional appetite, liquidity flows, and adoption conversations in 2026. And again, this is not just hypothetical. We're seeing language in draft documents and committee discussions that didn't exist 6 months ago. That's real evolution. But here's where the Christmas warning gets sharp. These global frameworks could accelerate adoption overseas faster than adoption in the US. That would create a bifurcated market, one where XRP rallies abroad while stagnating under US legal shadow. And for traders who only watch Coinbase and Binance charts, that divergence can feel like a shock. Now let's bring in the third juggernaut: market sentiment and accumulation patterns. On-chain data shows sustained accumulation by addresses that typically belong to institutional holders. We're not talking about retail buying dips. We're talking about long-term wallets increasing positions subtly over time. When big players accumulate quietly, it often precedes major announcements or catalysts that they already anticipate. They don't broadcast their plays, they prepare silently, and that's what we're seeing. Layer this with rising XRP liquidity in Asian and European exchanges, and there's a picture emerging. A market that's quietly gearing up for something bigger than just short term price swings. But here's the catch: that buildup can create two differing outcomes, either a massive breakout when news hits, or a sell the news reaction if expectations outpace developments. This duality is the heart of this Christmas warning. The probability space is widening, not narrowing. So let's talk about scenarios, because that's where preparation becomes practical. Scenario 1: Ripple gets a clear regulatory definition in the US that frames XRP as a settlement token. This leads to institutional inflows, renewed exchange support, and a breakout rally in Q1, Q2 2026. That's the bullish thesis. Scenario 2: Regulatory ambiguity persists or worsens, causing XRP to stagnate or correct even as global adoption accelerates. That's the divergence thesis. Foreign markets rally XRP utility, while US liquidity stalls, causing price volatility. Scenario 3: A mixed outcome where regulatory clarity emerges, but with restrictive compliance requirements that temper institutional enthusiasm. This could lead to a period of sideways action before any breakout, and right now, probabilities for these scenarios are closer to even than many people realize, which is why the market could react violently in either direction. If you're holding XRP, here's the operational takeaway. Don't treat this like another seasonal pump. Treat it like a structural pivot point. Whether you're a trader or a long-term holder, risk management and strategy calibration right now could be far more important than timing the next price candle. We're not telling you to panic. Far from it, we're telling you to prepare. Christmas isn't just about celebration in the crypto world this year, it's about positioning. And hey, if you're getting value from this breakdown and want more real-time alerts as this situation unfolds, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. We're going to be covering this every step of the way. Now let's move into the deeper technical shifts that show this isn't just narrative noise, it's structural change. In this second part of our Christmas XRP warning, we're going deeper into the undercurrents shaping the next phase of Ripple and XRP's trajectory. And trust me, once you understand what's happening beneath the headline noise, you'll see why this is such a critical moment. We left off talking about regulatory ambiguity and global positioning. Now let's talk about nut liquidity dynamics. And how that's quietly influencing market mechanics for XRP holders. Because make no mistake, liquidity isn't just a market term, it's the pulse of price movement. Over the last few weeks, specific Asian exchanges have been increasing XRP liquidity across major trading pairs. That means XRP isn't just trading more, it's being used as a bridge asset for cross-border trades and inter-exchange settlements. This is a subtle but powerful signal. It means XRP is functioning in real economic activity, not just speculative trading. When a token becomes part of actual flow, that's utility-based demand, that's organic, and that's what institutions pay attention to. But here's where the warning intensifies. If this liquidity growth continues and US exchanges lag, we could see a disconnect in global pricing, meaning price volatility could spike because the US order books aren't as deep relative to offshore demand. And that kind of liquidity imbalance often leads to sharper price swings. That's not bullish or bearish, that's volatility. And volatility is what traders both fear and crave. Now let's layer in another element: XRP staking and earning programs. Several platforms are rolling out new mechanisms where holders can earn yield on XRP through decentralized finance products. This means more holders are locking up XRP long term, reducing circulating supply, reduced sell pressure, plus rising utility demand, a classic setup for upward price potential. But again, and this is the warning, locked supply also means thinner markets, which can make price moves more extreme in either direction. Volatility with a capital V. Next, let's examine Fortfrau's institutional interest. Remember those accumulation patterns we discussed? Big players don't move without reason, and several investment funds are quietly adding XRP exposure while public markets watch Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's not random. That suggests thesis diversification, XRP as a settlement and liquidity asset. If that narrative gains traction publicly, capital inflows could accelerate rapidly. However, if regulatory clarity doesn't come fast enough, those same institutions might redirect capital back into assets with clearer legal frameworks. This is the flip side of the Christmas warning. The window for institutional adoption could narrow if clarity doesn't arrive soon. So, as we approach early 2026, you've got a triad of forces interacting: regulatory clarity, global utility adoption, and market liquidity balance. When three major forces interact, markets don't move in neat lines. They oscillate, test support zones, and generate large swings. And this is exactly why we're sounding the alarm right now. Let's talk about price psychology, because this is where the narrative becomes almost tangible. Bitcoin and Ethereum have dominated crypto headlines for years, but XRP's narrative has always been utility based: real world payments, bank integrations, cross border liquidity. When markets shift from speculative narratives to utility narratives, price behavior changes too. Longer accumulation phases, slower buildups, sharper reactions to real world events. This kind of shift isn't instantaneous, it's messy. That messy transition is exactly where we stand right now. Now let's get tactical for holders and traders listening. If you're a long term holder, consider dollar cost averaging into strategic positions rather than chasing parabolic breakouts. Why? Because utility cycles and regulatory cycles don't move in sync with ticker candles. Patience plus preparation trumps impulsive entry near news spikes. If you're a short term trader, be aware that volatility could spike in both directions depending on regulatory headlines. Wider stops and nimble position sizing could be your friends right now. Locking in partial profits as important levels hit can protect against sudden reversals. And if you're a new investor, be cautious about entering large positions based solely on price predictions. Understand the fundamental landscape, regulatory wheels, global adoption, liquidity shifts, because these will move markets harder than RSI or MACD signals in isolation. Here's the bottom line: the shift we're warning about this Christmas isn't about if XRP will move, it's about how and why it will move. And once narrative forces align, whether bullishly or bearishly, price reactions will be swift and sharp. That's not speculation, that's market mechanics. But let me end on this note, because this is crucial. Every structural shift in history creates both risk and opportunity. The traders and holders who prepare by understanding the forces at play rather than reacting only after price moves are the ones who navigate these moments with clarity. That's the real advantage. So, once again, if you found this breakdown valuable and want ongoing coverage through this critical phase, make sure you're subscribed and notifications are on. We're tracking every twist as this story unfolds. Merry Christmas, stay sharp, and remember, in crypto, knowledge isn't just power, it's profit protection.